Oh no, I've got a hole in my box. Hi everyone and welcome back to the Colour Cave where we like to play with art stuff. My name is Jem and today I have my much anticipated Artful quarterly subscription box. Again, the last quarter just seems to have disappeared, but I'm super excited today to find out what's in this box. There's lots of rattling going on, so I'm hoping that that's just lots of things floating about and nothing's broken. We've had a little bit of an injury here, which I'm a little bit sad about because these boxes are always so pretty. It's one of the things I love that they do. So let's just get fired in. So being a quarterly box, this is a little bit more expensive than the usual monthly subscription boxes, but they are incredibly good value for money, and the magazine has developed wonderfully over the last few boxes, and it's an excellent resource for all your arty inspirations and needs. So let's have a little looky-see here. Okay, so one of the things that they always include are some of their greetings cards. These are blank greetings cards that you can design for yourself, and they come with envelopes. So it's nice to have those just as an aside. So we've usually got a selection of art supplies around a theme and also something to draw or paint on, and as I say, this massive magazine. So I'm going to dig that out first just to show you what I'm talking about. I love that everything's all Artful branded in here. That makes me really happy. Let's learn about watercolour and other stuff, so that's what the contents of our box is going to be about. This cover is lovely, but there's the thickness of the magazine. It's more like a book than a magazine, but we'll dig into that in just a little bit. Okay, so the first thing we have here is a pad of Artful Premium Heavyweight watercolour paper. It's 300 GSM, so it is a chunky monkey, and that's exactly what we want. It does have a little bit of texture on it as well, and it says on it, suitable for watercolour, pen, pencil, ink, calligraphy, pastel and oil pastel. I really like the Artful paper, and it's paper that I keep going back to, and I'm really impressed with the quality of their papers thus far. So let's see what's in the tissue paper. This is exciting. Ooh! Daler Rowney Aquafine Art Masking Fluid, exclusive to Artful, so that's nice to know. My experiences with masking fluid up to this point are quite mixed, and my preference is for the ones that are in pen form because they don't smell as bad, they're not as messy, and you've got a lot more precision and control with them. In a jar like this, I'm assuming it's not got a dropper or anything. Nope, it's right there. So that could be interesting, especially when I've got a hand that likes to spasm every now and then. It absolutely reeks. The Winsor & Newton one stinks as well, and that's right up there in the same ballpark. That is horrendous. The idea behind masking fluid is that you can, as the name suggests, you can mask off parts of your artwork where you don't want the paint to go, and it means you can go merrily along your way with your paintbrush, and it leaves those areas clean and clear. So if you're wanting highlights or you're just wanting a really crisp line in a very contrasting colour, this is really handy. And you paint it on and you leave it to dry, and then you do the rest of your painting, and when you're done it literally peels off. It's like gummy and stretchy, and you can peel it off, revealing the nice fresh untouched paper underneath, and then you can do what you like in that bit. But yeah, wow, this is stinky. Whew. Okay, am I hoping that there's paintbrushes in here? I love these little boxes. I keep loads of things in these boxes. What is interesting here straight away, it makes me really happy, is they've given us a pipette. Some of you will know that I use a pipette all the time, and I'm really glad that they've included one. That just makes me really happy. Good job, Artful, well done. I'm looking at these paintbrushes. There's a really nice selection here, but these look remarkably like the brushes we got with the acrylic set. This is the acrylic brush, or the brush that we got for acrylics, should I say. Are these the same brushes? We can use synthetic brushes with watercolour, obviously. So we have got a flat size 14. That's great for doing washes if you want to get all the way down your paper. We've got an angled brush, and that is a size 6. So that's good for nice, if you're working in a sort of tighter space and you need some nice straight lines, and it also gives you really pointy points as well, so that's a good brush to have. They've given us a really good selection here actually. A number 1 round, great for detail for smaller areas. We have a number 4 and also a number 6, so really commonly used sizes in these brushes. Oh, sorry, that's a 5, I beg your pardon, not a 6, it's a 5. If these are the same as the other brushes, they're really nice brushes, I like them, but I've not used them with watercolour, so that'll be interesting to try. And Artful, oh, Artful, I love you. They've given us an Artful pencil, and it's an F grade pencil. This is my favourite sketching grade of pencil, and F stands for fine. So it's just a really nice place to be. It gives a really faint line as well, so it's not going to interfere too much with your finished project, especially if you're doing in watercolour, because the lines are very fine and very faint. So I am super duper impressed with that. Oh, look, it's turquoise, and it says Artful on it. That is a classy tin. We've got a little thumb loop on the bottom here, so if you like to be one of these people that uses your tin to mix your colours and stuff, that's really helpful. So we've got mix and melts here, 5 of those, and we've also got a little bit down the bottom here as well. Look at these colours, oh my goodness me. 24 half pans of watercolour paint. Now these watercolour tins are quite generic, and I like them for that because this whole section comes out. You just push these clips in and that whole bit lifts out. I can't do it because I've got nails. Like so. But also as well, you can slip these pans out, so if there's colours that you use more often than some of the ones that are here, you can switch them out, or maybe you've just got a colour that comes in a certain brand and you can switch them about. So really, really great stuff. That is a lot of watercolour. Oh my goodness me. I am excited, very, very excited. There looks to be a really good range of colours as well. They haven't given, oh, I was going to say they haven't given us a Payne's Grey, but it's right there. We've got a Prussian Blue, which is also good. We've got a Sap Green, which is most important for me, although they're calling it Tree Green, but it's the same thing as far as I'm concerned. And a Yellow Ochre. So that's me, I'm happy. Right, we're gone. Right, that's us. We can finish now. Okie dokie, so let's take a look at our magazine. So clearly we have everything we need to do some watercolour painting. So inside the first page of the magazine, it tells you a little bit about the company, what they do, and all the other extra bits and bobs that you get, as well as just what's in the box. So there's tutorials. They also do like a daily art prompt as well on Instagram. You obviously don't have to be subscribed to see that, but if you're needing a little bit of a push to decide what to draw or paint, that's what that's for. So let's start with the 24 Artful watercolour half pans. Recommended retail price $49.95. A well-balanced set of colours using premium quality pigments lists the colours. Comes in a transportable tin, and the lid opens out to provide several areas which can be used for mixing colours. So yeah, that's pretty much. I think really with this, it's going to be in the testing. That's where this is going to come from. Exclusive to Artful, Daler Rowney masking fluid. Recommended retail price $3.25. The product dries, creating a waterproof barrier to stop paint from reaching the paper. It can be removed by peeling it off or rubbing it. It can be applied with a brush. After use, clean your brush with soapy water. Do not apply this to damp paper. Okay, the brush thing is really, really important. If you let masking fluid even begin to set on a paintbrush, it'll wreck your paintbrush. Forget it. It's like having chewing gum in your hair, basically. So it's really, really important that you make sure you clean that brush very thoroughly. If I'm going to use a brush for it, I tend to use an old paintbrush or like a cheap paintbrush, and that way if I don't get all of the masking fluid out, it's no great loss. It is the easiest way to apply it. There are other ways to apply it as well, which I'll show you once we get to checking out the supplies on the paper. The Artful F pencil, the perfect hard pencil for putting down faint line work to begin your painting. Makes sense. The Pipette, recommended retail price 50p. That's hilarious. Fill with a mixed colour to create interesting effects. It can also be filled with water and dropped onto a painted area to help with blending. I just like to have them for dropping water into like wells and things, but yeah, you can use it for lots of stuff. Okay, the 5 Artful brushes. Our premium brushes have synthetic fibres and produce pin sharp detail. I'm not adverse to a synthetic brush for watercolour. Most of you know I really like the Sea White of Brighton synthetic brushes when I'm painting with watercolour. So I'm up for this. I'm completely up for this. So there's a detailed round, the 4 and 5 pointed round, the 14 flat, and the angled brush, which is a 6. Watercolour paper, recommended retail price $19.95. 25 sheets of, it says 330 GSM on here, but on the actual pad it says 300, so I'm wondering which one is correct, because 330 is chunky, that is chunky. Yeah, and it just tells you everything it said on the front. The greetings cards and envelopes, 280 GSM, Fedragoni board suitable for wet and dry media. So they are the same as the ones that they've put in previous boxes. This very magazine, recommended retail price £7.95, over 100 pages of interviews, tutorials and inspiration, and that is where we are going next. Over the page. So this is a note from Jamie, the editor, who's a lovely chap, by the way. I did interview him as part of Cavemas last year, and it was absolutely hilarious. So if you'd like to see that and get to know Jamie a bit better, I'll leave the link to that down in the description and also in the end card. I will also leave a link to the Artful site as well if you fancy having one of these boxes for yourself, and you can just click on the link and off you go. So we've got the contents page, a brief history of watercolour. So if you're wanting to up your art knowledge, this is great for this. And this magazine's lovely to sit with a cup of coffee or a cup of tea and just, you know, browse your way through it. So there's some tips there as well for you, talking about washes and wet versus dry, that kind of thing as well. So that's really helpful. And then they move on to there's actually swatches here of the watercolours. I personally like to swatch them out myself, but this is quite nice just to give us a little overview. So you can see that the colour range is pretty varied. I would say they've done really well. And it does say at the bottom, this is mixed with a small amount of water. Obviously, one of the main things about watercolour is you can create a massive range of different tones just by using more water or having it very, very concentrated. And that's why it's so versatile. I love it. Okay, we've got a little bit on painting basics as well, so that's quite nice, talking about wet on dry and glazing. So that's really helpful as well. If you've never worked with watercolour, this is the section for you. Now here's the section that I made a mistake. I've talked about this quite a lot, about lifting techniques in watercolour, you know, when you've made a boo-boo. It's quite easy to, if the paint has good lifting qualities, which high quality watercolour should have, and it shouldn't really be affected too much by the quality of the paper. But this is explaining how to do that. It's doing it with a tissue here. I like to use the thirsty brush technique, which is just more or less doing the same thing with a paintbrush. Okay, so, oh my goodness, this is very in-depth and in detail. Understanding brush strokes. So we've got an overview here of different types of paintbrushes and what each one should actually be used for. So that's really nice as well. And it's not specific to the brushes that are in the box, which is even better. So that's letting you expand your knowledge out with, you know, the confines of the box. Swatch library. I have never done one of these. I wouldn't have the patience to do one. But there's an example of a swatch chart of people that have tried every possible combination. I think they look really pretty. Moving on here, we're talking about the masking fluids. So they really are hand holding you through everything that comes in this box. If you're like me, who, you know, we don't really do stuff like this very often, you know, you'll pick things up as you go along. But there's a really nice demonstration of the masking fluid there as well, which is nice as well. Just don't breathe it in, whatever you do. Aaron Apsley, stunning botanical illustrations. This is amazing. I love this stuff. Like, I love painting trees and plants and stuff. So this is nice. Look, so this is an interview with him and some of his work. This is really nice, and I like this artwork. This is aesthetically pleasing to me because it's crisp and it's simple, but there's detail in there. I gravitate towards this kind of thing because I'm a person that doesn't really like clutter. So this really, really appeals to me. So you can check out that little interview there. Oh, this is nice. I wonder where this is. It's clearly in a city in America. Might be like New York or somewhere. There's nothing really giving it away. Oh, so is this his artwork too? This is his artwork too, because in the middle of his interview. Look. Behind the scenes on creating the box artwork with Aaron. So Aaron was the person that made this stunningly beautiful box, which I am in love with, by the by. And is showing you various steps in the process. I have a monstera plant in my house. It's not nearly as fabulous as this, but I've often thought about painting it just for fun. That might give me something to do. Holly is another person that uses watercolour. She's created 2 step-by-steps for you to follow. So here we are getting into the, oh, this is good, I love this. Getting into the more sort of tutorial-y type stuff. And she creates a bowl of ramen. Okay, that's lovely. And that's something that's quite straightforward. Most people will be able to follow that, even if you're not that experienced. And if you are more experienced, you can obviously put your own twist on it. And a red panda. Oh, like, he's adorable. That's really nice, really, really nice. And again, step-by-step instructions as well as the photographs of the image to help you along your way. And we're on to the next artist, and this is a very different way to use watercolour, and I really like this. The colours in this are gorgeous. This would look good in a book illustration, or maybe it is a book illustration. As I say, I'm not going to take the time just now to sit and read all this. Oh, look, that's lovely as well. Her sense of colour and how she uses it is very, very appealing. And we have yet another tutorial by Anna Tromop. Again, step by step, really clear instructions here on what to do and what way to go about it, which is just amazing. And what I'm noticing with these tutorials as I'm going through this magazine is they're very varied art styles, and it's nice to show the versatility of the watercolour, but also for us as the consumer to be able to relate to something and try something. If we find something that's close to an art style that we use or would like to be able to use, it's appealing to a lot of people, even if you're not a sort of classic or traditional watercolour painter, and I think that's amazing. So we have an interview with Helen Dardick. Oh, so colourful, so bright. Just lovely, absolutely lovely. It's a very, very distinct style, very distinct style. Another tutorial by Anna, and this is something that's up my street, and it's a monochromatic tutorial. This really appeals to me. I like working in graphite, so something like this really sort of tickles my fancy, and again also because it's an animal. So simple yet so effective. Really using the tones of the paper to create this artwork. That is lovely. I love this section of the magazine as well. It's called Ones to Follow, and it's snippets of people's Instagram, and it's just basically if you like what you see, you can jump on an Instagram and start following them. And we've got some crackers this time. Look at this. This is amazing. Oh my goodness. Natasha Baumgartner. Again, such a distinctive style. I've got so much respect for that. Really, really enjoy that. So lots of choice here. Marco Paolo as well. Pencil artist, again, very much appealing to me. So you make sure to check these people out and give them a wee follow if it's something that you would like to fill your feed with. And another tutorial. This time we're on to some flowers. Again, a bit simpler here. This is not a flower, this is a plant. Come on, Jem. This is a nice simple design. So if you're looking for something quick to paint, or you are just at the stage where anything else might be a bit overwhelming, this is a lovely one to go for. And look at this, look. So there's always this little bit in the magazine as well about the charity that Artful supports, and it tells you a little bit about where the money goes and what kind of things they do with it. So I absolutely love this as well. Currently the money that's going from the sale of the used art supplies on the channel here, we are going to donate to a charity once we've hit our target. So giving to charity is something that I've always wanted to do, and it's really nice to see that these larger companies are doing this kind of thing already. It really pleases me. The watercolour upgrade box. We love bright colours here at Oh Dear, and that's the parent company of Artful. With this upgrade box, we decided to deliver neon pigments and a top-up black half pan. We're not advocating to paint an entire scene with fluorescence, however they can be mixed beautifully with the tones in your current set to make something incredibly zesty. £69 worth of value for £20. So 5 brushes, 6 new half pans, which is 5 neons and 1 black, and a felt roll case to keep your brushes in. I don't know if that's something that I would go for, not really into neon colours, but that would be incredibly interesting. And Jessica here has done a little tutorial using these extra colours as well to kind of spur you on. Look how vibrant that is, that's crazy mad. Crazy, crazy mad. But that looks like fun, doesn't it? So there you go, you can upgrade your box. Ooh, now this is interesting. So we've got another artist interview here, and this is some seriously whimsical stuff. Oh, it's a thistle monster. They look as if they're the kind of monsters that would chase the haggis through the hills in Scotland, definitely. So yeah, it would seem that Artful have been very chatty with lots of people. Lots of interviews here. This stuff's lovely though. Pastel parakeets. Oh. So another tutorial here. Again, different methods of using your watercolours as well. This is much, much softer. A lot of kind of more wash, wet and wet technique going on here. And that's very apparent from this image here. And we have someone that likes to paint flowers. I'm always very envious of this because they seem to get a level of precision with watercolour that I am not capable of doing. Wow, these are huge. Look at the size of this artwork. That's amazing. Need some pretty chunky brushes to get that going. I always find flicking through this magazine so inspiring because there's so many pictures as well, and obviously art is a very visual thing, so it makes sense to have a magazine that's full of pictures. But this always makes me want to create, not necessarily paint watercolour flowers, but just generally gets my creative juices flowing. And so does this Delicious Desk Spaces. So this is basically a nosy at the areas that other people work in, and they're always really light and bright and airy, which is something that I don't have. I live in a drafty old cobwebby farmhouse, so I always really enjoy looking at this, and it's really interesting to see the difference in the way people work. Like, this is a very sort of clean environment, and you know, there's not a lot of clutter, which is what I like. And then you get people that have like all their stuff right beside them, and it like generates inspiration, and I think it looks lovely. And here we have an artist who creates portraits in watercolour, and that is stunning. So here's what I was talking about earlier, the daily drawing challenge that they have on Instagram. So they give you something to draw and you go and do it in whatever medium you please, or incorporate it into an artwork. So there we go, that is our Artful magazine. I think you'll agree it's substantial. And do you know what's really pleased me this quarter? They have taken out the film section. I didn't see the point of it in an art magazine. Personally, I know some people liked it. I really wasn't a fan, so I'm glad to see that's been replaced with more tutorials, because that's much more helpful. We're going to clear all this out of the way, and we are going to start testing out the supplies. Okay, the first job is unwrapping all these pans, so we'll get that done and we can take it from there. Righty ho ho, so I've got myself set up with some water and some bits and bobs here, and the first thing we're going to talk about is the masking fluid, because you would put that down before you start painting. So if anybody is looking for some masking fluid, this will be available in the Stash shop probably next Sunday. It won't be in today. That reminds me, Stash shop update, it's Sunday. Go and check out what we've added. There's new supplies, there's used supplies, and there's some other bits and pieces there as well. If you like some stickers, you can go and check that out over on the website, which is here, and the link, as always, is down in the description. I'm trying to keep this masking fluid as far away from me as possible. Now, I've just got a cheap brush here, and it is clean and dry, and I am going to dip it in here. Oh, this is revolting. It does seem to be quite watery. So if we put a design of some description, it doesn't really matter what it is at this point, but if we just get it down on the paper here, so you would just use this like a normal paintbrush. It's not anything fancy, and we'll let it do its thing. So I've got separate water here, this is in a spare cup, and I'm going to try and get as much of that off as I can, and I've got a rag here as well. Okay, so the other way that I like to apply masking fluid is with a silicone tipped brush, which looks a little something like this. So this is rubbery, it's flexible, it's bendy, and apparently nail artists use this, you know, like nail technicians, to do nail art, and they come in lots of different shapes. You get pointy ones, you get not so pointy ones, you get angled ones, and I found this is really helpful because it's easy to clean the masking fluid off of this, and you're not in danger of damaging your brushes. You can pick up a multi-pack of these really cheap on the internet as well, which is nice. So the other thing I've noticed as well is we seem to get a much more consistent line, because it doesn't have the flexibility of the bristles of a brush. That's far too much, Gem, come on now. Then it's much easier to manoeuvre it, and depending on the shape, obviously, of the tip on it, you can get some pretty interesting lines as well. So I just wanted to give you a sort of quick demonstration. That is not even in any way, shape or form, but that's not really what we're here for right now. And the same thing again, you just dip that straight in your water, but there's nothing really for it to stick to. So if I just give this a wipe, and I've gone quite far down the ferrule as well, because I did have some on the ferrule, but if I show you the tip of that now, there is absolutely no trace of that masking fluid anywhere. They dry really quickly and off you go again, job done. So that is the masking fluid, and that is my preferred method of laying down masking fluid now, if I'm using this sort of idea. This is my favoured masking fluid, and it is the Schmincke pen masking fluid. and it has got a really fine point on it. Now obviously this is absolutely no use if you're wanting to cover large parts of your paper, but you can see how nice that is, and it's also blue, which means you can see it against your paper without having to sort of squint, because when this dries it's not always the easiest to see if you're working on white paper. This has virtually no smell, which makes me really happy. So we shall see how the Aquafine stands up. This is really, really cheap though as well. That's not a lot of money to pay for that much masking fluid. I have a feeling that the same thing will happen as happened with the Winsor & Newton one though. Eventually this will all gum up around here and you'll be like pulling strands of it off if masking fluid isn't something you use regularly. So ultimately what I want to get to at the end of this video is a little swatch chart to go inside the top of the tin here, because I don't like to mix in my tins and I like the colour names to be underneath, so we'll get to that at the end. But I want to test out some of these brushes, try them out and just see what some of the colours feel like before I start swatching them to go in the tin. Just off to the side here, you can see when I took the stickers off the pans, I've kept them in the order that they're in the tin, because I'm weird like that and I like to do that, and that's just so I don't get them mixed up, because when these pans are dry, some of the darker colours look quite similar and I don't want to get them mixed up. So naturally I'm going to start with this bad boy because it's amazing. So I've got a little water spritzer here. I've had this for a while, and basically I'm just going to do over here just a couple of squishes with that to dampen all the pans. I'm not going to do it on my paper. Can you hear it? Can you hear it? That'll just moisten those up nicely. And I do have now a damp brush, and I am going to grab some of the colours that I'm quite excited about. Weirdly Payne's Grey is one of them. Now it doesn't sound like a very exciting colour, but it is. So here we go, wet on dry. Oh, that's pretty nice. And if I add a little bit more water to that, it seems to be like diluting down very well. It seems to be happy to do so, which you would hope, because it's watercolour. Yeah, and it's travelling really well on the paper as well. Now bearing in mind this is textured paper, so it's got to work a little bit harder. But if I pick up some more neat pigment off the palette now and just start putting this in while this is still wet, let's just see where it goes and what it wants to do. So we'll let that do its thing. That is really rich though, and I can see as that's drying, that it's really pigmented, and I'm super happy about that. Payne's Grey is, for me, by far one of the most useful palettes in the entire tin, because you can mix it with so many things and do so much with it. And it's a really nice alternative to black. If you don't like that stark, you know, darkness, then the Payne's Grey is a lovely alternative, but it's got that kind of blue hint to it as well, which is why I like it, and it's, you know, it's kind of moody. That's why I like a good indigo as well. So as for the brush, this brush feels lovely. I do like the Artful brushes, and I remember talking about them last time when we got the acrylic inks. I'm just going to try this orange. Orange is not a colour I favour, I find it quite offensive. But I'm going to stick some water down on the paper first with the number 5 round. So I'm just going to put a splodge down, but I'm gonna hammer it, you know, like, let's get a lot of water going here. There we go. So we're almost puddled on the paper there, which you're technically not supposed to do, by the by. But I just want to see what happens here. One of the nice things about watercolour as well that you don't get with other mediums is the fact that it will go wherever the water goes, and it starts to get a little bit of a mind of its own, and that's what's happening down here. So we will let that do its thing down there just for fun too. And it's nice to see the mobility of the paint as well, because some are more reluctant than others to move about in water, and it's nice to have that option, that sort of free-flowing, you know, freedom as it were. Okay, let's grab this turquoise. Again, not a colour that I would normally associate with watercolour. And I've got this little angled brush here, so you can see you can get a really uniform straight line with it as well, and it's really good for, you know, the likes if you're painting architecture when you need a lot of straight lines. These brushes are brilliant for this. And it's much easier to get straight lines than it is with a round brush. And if you start to get a bit funky, you know, you can get a little bit creative. And that's a really nice delicate colour as well. It does look a little bit cloudy, so again I'm quite keen to see if I grab some of this and, you know, water it down, because it's quite a fine light colour anyway. And this is where your pipette comes in handy, because I can grab water straight out my clean water and just squish it into one of the wells. So this is pretty watered down now. Oh look, that would be a lovely like afternoon, you know, sunny sky type colour. Okay, so on to some of these rounds. This has got quite a pointy point on it. I like a pointy point too. It's going to have to be the tree green. And we can get really fine lines with that. Can you guys even see that on that camera? Might have to zoom you in a little bit here. Look at that. Now bearing in mind, this is a size 4. You know, we're not on a detail brush here. Look at that. That is fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. And yet, if we start getting a bit funky and put a bit of weight on it, you've still got this lovely thick line. And I'm loving the way that this paint is going down. This feels really nice, this paint. Really, really nice. That's quite a nice colour as well. I'm saying nice a lot, aren't I? So if that brush can do that, I would hope that the smallest brush, which, what did we say that was? That's a number 1. I would like to think that we would get the same, if not better, performance from this. Let's take a look at the yellow ochre. That tends to be a colour that I use quite a lot as well. And everybody likes it when I say ochre. That's quite concentrated. Ooh. Take a shot every time Jem says nice. No, don't do that. So let's try. Yeah, there we go, look. Oh my goodness. Now this is the brush for signing my name on paintings, clearly. Good stuff. I am impressed. I like these brushes. They do seem to hold plenty of water and plenty of paint, which is obviously very important if you're working in watercolour because you need to be able to squish stuff about a bit, and that is the technical term. But so far so good. The colours are looking pretty pigmented, pretty vibrant. They're quite happy to travel in water and they're easy to dilute as well. So we'll try a little bit of mixing and see what happens here. Now the colour I always like to do this with is to make an orange, and it's just because it's something that's really easy for you guys to see on the camera. So I'll do it up in this little top corner here. So let's grab some of this lemon yellow. So this is a, you know, the sort of paler, cool yellow. It's quite funny, the cup of water that I'm washing my brushes in, I've got one of these paint pucks in the bottom and it's pink. And this looks remarkably like some sort of dodgy cocktail you drink on a night out on holiday. Looks like a Harvey Wallbanger, that's what I used to like to drink. Oh, so full of calories, but so good. And we shall grab one of the reds. So I'm thinking that what they have just called red would be like a true red. They also have a cadmium red as well, which looks a bit deeper. And I would say it leans more towards blue than towards yellow. There we go. It's quite happy to mix with its friends and its neighbours, so that's good as well. No issues there. Again, something like that's not normally a problem with watercolour, but it's always worth checking out and see how it actually performs when you then go to put it on the paper. And it seems perfectly happy. That's actually quite a nice shade of orange. So there's the orange that comes in the box, and this is the one that we've just mixed. I think mine's nicer. Maybe it's like more of a tangerine colour. So yes, once again, impressed with these brushes, and just having used them, they are the same as the ones that came in the acrylic box, and that makes me really happy because I'd actually asked Artful if I could just have like a whole box of them because I really liked them. So I'm super pleased that we've got these in this subscription box. I'm looking at this masking fluid and it still isn't dry, so I can't do anything with this just yet. Interesting to see what's going on down here in my puddle of water. Can you see how the paint's spread? So that's nice that it's mobile, but it's happy to do it on its own as well. That's a really, really good sign. So lastly, we've got our wee pencil here, our F pencil. And I just want to show you what this actually does. I'm trying to grab an equivalent here. So I've got a mechanical pencil here. This is an HB. And if I just draw a couple of quick lines with it, just a medium press, you know, the way I would if I was sketching something. And then I'll do a sort of darker swatch here to let you see. If I take this F pencil now, which has a lovely point on it as well, and draw a couple of lines, you can see that it's a much harder and much lighter pencil. You can see it looks quite scratchy going down there when I'm trying to create that swatch. And obviously the harder the pencil, the more difficult it is to do this kind of thing. But even if I press quite hard, you can see that it's much, much lighter than what's going on over here. So in terms of sketching, especially when you're using a transparent medium, like watercolour, this is perfect, because when you take away, you know, even if you were to spend time with a kneaded eraser and lighten up those lines, they are going to be really, really light. So that's exactly what we want. Because some people do leave their sketch lines in, and it's kind of part of the aesthetic and part of their artwork, and I think it can look really nice. For me doing my own art, I think it looks really untidy, and I prefer to try and get rid of as much as possible, so that's why I enjoy using this grade of pencil for sketching. Right, we want to see how well these paints layer up on top of each other as well. So for this, I'm going to use this angled brush again. And I'm quite curious about the magenta. Again, it's not a colour that I use an awful lot of, but it's a colour that I always think is really pretty. Okay, so let's just go over this green here, and this will let us see the transparency. Oh, look at that for a colour. That's amazing. That is so nice. There's that word again. Dagnammit. So I can still see a little bit of the green peeking through, which is exactly what you want. And in the more diluted area of this magenta colour, it is much more obvious. Wait and see what this patch is like when it dries as well. The other thing that I want to test out is how well the paint lifts. That's when we were talking about making mistakes earlier. And I can show you what I mean by the thirsty brush technique as well while we're at it. So I'm going to take this big wide brush again, and let's pick another colour because why not? I'll go for the Prussian blue. Now this is my only complaint about this box so far, is this massive wide 14 flat brush. It just fits in these pans and no more. You kind of have to squish it in there a little bit. Well, let's pick another little corner down here. So if I go like this and I think, oh my dear Lord, what did you do that for, you silly woman? What we want to do is get a clean brush, and you want it to be damp. You don't want it to be wet, and you can't do it if it's dry. It has to have a little bit of moisture in it, but just no more. And I like to kind of dab on the back of my hand. And then we can go to the bit where we've decided we've made a screw up, and literally if you just dab away at that, the brush starts to suck up the moisture on the paper, so in this case this blue paint, and you can take away some of the colour. Now if you're really quick, you can lift most of it. Not always the case, but also it lets you create different techniques, different effects, or if you want something to look like it's got a highlight in it. So you can see there that this paint, now that bearing in mind this is really pigmented and it's quite a dark colour, and you can see quite clearly how well that's lifting with little to no effort. It is best to do this when the paint is as wet as possible, so if you make a mistake and you realise quickly, that's the best time to do it. You can lift a little bit, generally speaking, when paint is damp, but you will get the best results when the paint is still wet. I can actually take the corner of my rag and do the same thing if I just squeeze out some of the moisture so it's damp, and I can keep dabbing away at that, and you can get these, there we go, you can make like a mottled effect. So there's lots of applications for this. It's not just for clearing up mistakes, but I find it really handy because, not being a painter, I do tend to make a lot of mistakes, and at least I've got a way of fixing it with watercolour, which is nice. So there's a little bit that's still damp up here as well, and I just want to try this with, you know, the paint having dried a little bit more, and just see if that's going to lift. And look at that, there you go. So I was quite aggressive there with my brush, you know, I pressed it down quite hard onto the paper, and you can see it's still taking the paint that's damp, it's still lifting it. So all in all, I am quite impressed with these paints so far. I do always say though, it's all very well testing things out on a sheet of paper like this. You don't really see the true scope of a product until you actually create an artwork in your own style with it. So on that note, I'm taking suggestions for what you would like to see me do with this set of supplies. Artful, unlike the monthly boxes, do not provide a prompt in the box, which in one hand is really, really nice. They do provide the daily drawing prompt on Instagram though, so if you do need that little bit of direction, it's there. Seeing what we've got, I can do pretty much anything with this, so I want to know what you guys want to see me do, and we'll maybe do another video and we'll really, really go to town with these and make a pretty watercolour picture. So get your thinking caps on and then get down into the comments and tell me what you foresee with these items. So what I'm going to do is skip over now to making out this little swatch chart, and it's something that I find really, really helpful. Hopefully by the time we've done that, this masking fluid will be dry and we can test that out. It's mostly dry, but there's just a couple of areas where it's a little bit thicker and it still looks a bit, you know, as if you were to poke your finger in it, it would, you know, yeah, like that. So I've just cut myself a little piece of watercolour paper here that's the right size to fit in the lid of the tin here, and I usually just stick it in with blue tack, and this is what I'm going to do my swatch chart on. And for this, because of the size of the paper as well, one of the smaller brushes would be better for this, so I'm going to use the number 4 here. And basically I work right to left, being left-handed, because I don't want to stick my hand in wet paint as I'm going that way, so I will be doing these backwards if you're a right-handed person. I would just like to point out this rose red. It's absolutely outrageous, but in an entirely beautiful way. It's really, really, really pink. That's really nice. That was one of the ones we didn't test before. So I finished my swatches here, and a few observations just while I was doing that, besides the outrageous rose red that I quite like. When I came down to the bottom here, the brown, I don't really know how I feel about this. I think it's like pulling too much towards grey for my liking. It's just not, I don't know. I don't really have the words to describe it. I just felt it was a bit flat. And moving further along, these colours are absolutely amazing. But if you see this is supposed to be the Payne's Grey, and it looks very much like an indigo here. And this is supposed to be a Prussian blue. And for me, that's like a phthalo blue, especially when you see it in a slightly lesser dilution further down. I still think this is an amazing colour palette. The colours are so vibrant and really, really rich. And I've had absolutely no problems working with these whatsoever, so I am suitably impressed. I'm absolutely in love with this olive green as well. I can see that being a colour that I would use quite a lot. So just before we finish up in this absolutely spectacular box, which I am super chuffed with, I'm just going to go back here, and my masking fluid seems to have done its thing, which is nice. And I'm going to grab this olive green actually. Why not? And I'm going to take this wide brush here, and we're just going to go straight over the top. So it's a bit like you would do like a wax resist with crayons when you were at a kiddie wink, like this. So you paint whatever you want to paint. You know, if you wanted to make the middle a different colour, you would do all that. And we're just going to let this dry, and then we're going to try and take the masking fluid off. And this is the bit that I'm interested in. Having tested masking fluids before, sometimes I have found that it can damage the paper underneath. You know, it tears the paper a bit, or sometimes it pulls away some of the paint with it as well. And that to me is something that's really, really important, because if you spent a lot of time painting something and your masking fluid's not coming off until the end, you can actually ruin an artwork right at the last kick through no fault of your own. I have been told when it comes to masking fluid though to take it off as soon as you're able, and because the longer it sticks to the paper, the more it actually adheres to the fibres of the paper, which increases the chances of you having tears or for it to bobble up the surface of the paper. And that's obviously quite important. If you are going to paint these parts a different colour, the paper has to still be intact underneath. Righty ho ho, so there's two ways that we can try and take this off. The first is by rolling or rubbing very gently with our finger. So I'm just going to try, there we go, so that's it starting to peel off, and I can actually grab a hold of that. Hope you can see that there, and I can pull it like an elastic band. And it's coming away really easily, and it's left a really nice line. Didn't manage to get that off all in one go. So that is very successful. It seems very gentle. The other way that people do it is with rolling a kneaded eraser over it. And if you just very gently, again, even with this, you seem to be able just to need to get it started, and the rest will come off fairly simply. Now there are a few dots of paint there, and I think that's where the bubbles were when I'd actually put it down. I'll give you a little bit of a closer look there, but you can see how clean and fresh the paper is. There is no damage to the paper whatsoever. So I am very, very impressed with this, albeit it's a little bit stinky, but you can't have it always, can you? So there we go, everyone. That is the Artful box for this quarter. I think this is an absolutely cracking box. And I've felt a bit sort of hemmed in with the monthly boxes recently, and I feel as if I've just been given my freedom back, especially with a colour palette that looks like this in a set of what seems to be very high quality paints. The only question that I have, and I'm going to try and find out before we do another video where we do an actual artwork, is if these paints have any light fast ratings. It is not mentioned, so I will try and find that out from Artful before the next video. So as I said earlier, if you have any suggestions of what you would like to see me paint, you can leave those down in the comments section, and you can also head to the stash shop on the website if you want to pick yourself up some arty goodies and just treat yourself a little bit. So I want to thank you very much for watching today. I would love to hear your opinion on this box. You know, I love to hear what you think and other people's point of view on these kind of boxes. And all I ask you to do now is just stay safe, please look after each other, and we'll see you back in the cave on Thursday for another video. So have a good day everyone, and bye for now.